in Houdini. So basically what I have here, I have a boat. The boat is just a proxy file for Redshift, and this boat is a scale reference. From the distance, if you don't have any object, it's really hard to tell. So I have a ocean CG in menu. So I created this HDA and it's optimized for Redshift, and that's a great tool because every time I would need to set up an ocean here using Redshift, took me so long, and most of the time you want a range of ocean that goes from a flat one to choppy, but it's really rare that you really want a stormy with particles flying all over, and then that's a specific shot that you need to build from scratch. But in this case is that average ocean that you can still play a lot with the size of the waves and the patch and how windy is the day and all that. So that's really great. To start, I have like these ocean settings and the texture settings, and in the textures is asking for 5 maps. So I have the large maps, a second large map, so we kill the tiling, and both for mid and mid maps we have 2, and small map only 1. This is the very tiny details in the water, the crispy tiny detail. This is mid waves, and this is the real big large waves. So we have a bit less resolution in this one, then a bit higher resolution for these two, and this one. These maps I use this system to bake, so I have a large ocean spectrum, a different one, and then I'm just cooking them to maps and tiling them all over using a few tricks that we have here inside of this HDA to make this tiling invisible. So let's do it. Let me bring my maps. Large ocean, so we have like 300 frames. The small one, you see, like it's a much bigger file, it's 74, because it's a 4K map, so it just takes more space. So now that we have all the maps, we can just come here and say, okay, let's start just having a look on it in 1000 by 1000. And let me get my camera, lock the view, and fire the render so you see what we get so far. So let's start from the top of this in this first tab. So here is the ocean size. If we change this to something much larger like this, okay, so yeah, you see still holds all the details, and it's a much larger ocean. So the boat is a good reference, as we discussed before. Let me just get closer to the boat, and you can see that we have like these larger waves, the medium size waves, and the small bumps, and these crisp edges. So let me see it from further so we can see better the ocean. And I'm going to reduce the size so we can just focus in one part. So let me make it 500 and recalculate. Okay, so here we now I have like a 500 meters ocean, and let's start playing. You can see here in the edge what's happening here is that we have like this is the ground visibility in the edge. Is not showing the ground itself, it's showing this gray, so that's why we have like this edge. We can make the ground larger, but I think it's good for now. So let's come down to here. Let me change the depth. So if we change the depth to something large, like 20, you just change how the refraction works in here. So maybe I can do it like 100. So it's get a deeper blue, and that's going to be influenced further down here when we play with the translucency, the transparency of this water. So for now I think we can keep like -5. The patches scale is the scale of this contrast. Let me make it really dark, this one, and this really light, so we can have a more contrasty. And if I change this to something like half of the size, we're going to have more patches, or even if I make it really visible, a lot of small patches. Like if you go into a coral reef, you can make it more green, so I have a different color of the water. In this way you have a lot of controls, and here is the contrast between the dark part and the lowest part, so you have more contrast. It looks like shallower. You can have less contrast, just like some small patches, so it's a nice way of controlling it. So let's keep moving on. I'm going to reduce the contrast, something like that, and let me do this 750. Yeah, I like to see these patches. And this one I also want to make it like less green, more towards blue, and this, yeah, I like this color for now. So this part is really cool because this we can control the look of our ocean. Let me make it larger so it's better for visualizing what's going on. Let's zero out this. So 0. So now we have only the big large waves, one of them. Okay, so this is 0. We have only these large waves going on, so this would be the second patch, so it's 0, so that's why it's like that. And now if I make like this, I can make it even like double size. You see, we have a even larger waves in this one. So let me put this back to, let's say we want a calmer ocean, like with smaller waves, so we can make like this 0.5. And in this one we don't want it totally flat. What we want here is to have like a bit, but in a different scale. So we have like this difference as the gusts of wind are getting more into one part and less in other. So yeah, you see, we have these more smaller waves, and this is a patch with even smaller. So I like the large and the smaller waves. I like to keep them kind of same. So I would say we can make this maybe 0.6, because the gusts wouldn't affect the large waves as much as it would in the mid and the small. So I think that's the, we're going to get like yeah, just tiny variation. Maybe we can reduce this a bit and make this 4 and 6, and instead of because we need to keep moving on, you understand the logic behind. So let's put this like to 0.45 and 0.3, and this is the same thing. With this we can have like the working the same way with different patches, different areas for the mid and for the mid waves. So yeah, we gain a bit more detail, and I think it's going to be more visible if we move the camera a bit like lower. Yeah, you see, you have like different areas of different crispness, and then the small waves is the small details. We can make it like 0.7 to create this really complex small ripples around the ocean in general. And that's something that you see, you gain so much more details. And then the nice thing is that the displacement height. So this we can control, is a multiplier for all of this. We can just gain more higher waves if we want. Just keep in mind that it might produce some weird effects if you exaggerate that too much, and then you lose the realistic feeling for the ocean. So now let's play. So here we have a diffuse cusp weight. So I exported the cusp of the wave, just the tiny edge, and then let me exaggerate this also. So let me put this to 1. You're going to see all these small details in the edge of the wave. If I make this white, full white, you can maybe see even more. You see this? Let me do a snapshot, and then let me bring this to 0 and do another snapshot, and then you can see the difference. You see? All this white, just to give more feeling of the volume. Here's 1, of course, exaggerated, but then you get the feeling of different, and you can play with the colors of this. Sometimes you want just to have like almost the same tone of the ocean, so that's what it's doing. So I'm going to keep this 0.5, I think it's good, and make this a bit more bluish, light blue, and this one, yeah, like maybe a bit more greenish. Yeah, and here's the reflection weight. So how much reflection do we want in the ocean? This is a slider that I don't like to play much, but you can see more the diffuse now. But anyway, I like to keep this as 0.8, but the reflection roughness I like to play. If you increase the roughness, it's look even more crispy and like more windy. So when you have like a very windy ocean, you have more this this feeling. I'm exaggerating it, but for example, if you have like this, you have a bit more the feel of the wind in the surface of the water. Look the reflections in here. Let me do let me just delete this, and delete this, so I'm sure that we got the right one. Okay, so okay, we have this, and let me get the roughness down quite a bit. You see, now let's compare. So you have a different feeling for the ocean. So yeah, that's it. The roughness is really important. And then the refraction weight is how much transparent is the water, how much information you want to have in the background. Sometimes you have some rocks under the water, and this also make the feeling of the depth. If I reduce this quite a bit, we have a much deeper ocean, like an open ocean scene where you have more the reflection of the sky and the diffuse maps. Otherwise, if you have like this all the way to total, you're going to have a very transparent, more shallow feel to the ocean itself. So the index of refraction also is something that you can play. I don't normally work too much with that. This is a good value. The subsurface scattering amount is the multi-surface subsurface scattering, and it works. Is another way of working with the oceans is that you can have like a color here, for example this greenish, and then if you have a shallower part, it's going to be more visible. If you have like a mountain or something like that, I can try to reproduce that. Just a moment, let me pause this. Let me create an island. So this is using the transparency, right? So if I come in here and let's change all this. Let me no diffuse, yeah, the reflection we can keep, and no refraction weight. But then I want to have this all the way to 1, and then I want to play with the radius of this. So if I increase this radius and increase this one, let me maybe get a better angle so we can see. So let me increase this to 1. Yeah, you see now what we're getting here. So let me reduce this to 1 and 1, Okay, so here you don't see much, but if you increase this value to something like that, like you start to see, and this one even more, like for example all the way up to 20 meters, but we want this to maybe 5, and then we start to see this grade going, like if you have a beach, and it's just like if I increase this to 10, you're going to see even more, but then it's too much because our sphere ends. So I think around 6 is a good amount, and this is a totally different look than if you have no subsurface scattering and you have only the transparency. Even if you reduce this, you see you have like this sharp edge around it. I really think it's for some cases the subsurface amount is a really good way of portraying a realistic depth to the shallow areas of the shot. So anyway, for now I'm going to keep this as it is, and let's delete this. Let's just erase this sphere and let's keep moving on. So here's basically how the colors, and in these maps, as we play with the amount of them here, like the large waves one, they are controlled by this noise. So here you have the control of the noise of the patches. So if you want these patches of difference between the large waves be more visible, you can play with the roughness, the size of the patches. So here you have control over the mask. So if I make this really visible, for example, bring this to 0, let it think a bit, and so we're going to have 0 there and 6 here. Okay, you can see this, you have like a patch there, a patch there. But if I come to this area, large wave mask, and I increase this to like maybe 0.5, yeah, you see now you have a lot of patches because we increase the frequency. So yeah, that's how you play with this. I'm going to bring back to, no, not 15, 0, 15. Okay, in the second tab here is the tab that you would control the tessellation and the displacement. So in the beginning I played with this setting and made the large wave like 2, but if the displacement is set the maximum displacement to 1, you will never achieve what you're looking. So you need to let this displacement be big. Like for example, if I put this to 5 now, it's not going to make any difference here because there's no 5 meters wave here. But if I increase that ocean, then it would allow it to go up to 5 meters in here, and this is a multiplier of the displacement. So I don't ever touch this because I like to play the displacement normally inside the node. But if you don't have access, or if you want to make just a tiny bit multiplication, you can just play with this parameter. And this is the tessellation, is how much detail. So if you're very close to the camera, you can bring this as the smaller you get the minimum edge length, more resolution you have, and the maximum subdivisions, the higher the more resolution. So keep in mind that if you change this value, it's going to calculate longer. So a very high resolution ocean would be, for example, 2 in here and 8 in here is a very high resolution. So basically here's just a general transformation. We cover most of it. So just with this HDA, you have your ocean set up right away. You just need to copy and paste the maps in here. So I think that's a really time-saving node. If you like to play with oceans, then you get a very fast, realistic look in minutes or seconds. Okay guys, see you in the next one. Then we're going to keep working our island. We're going to set up the camera fly, the camera path, and then we can decide how much attention we want to put in which parts of the island. See you in the next one.